See how this top scammer in America, how he does it. He uses a knife to gently scratch off the small numbers on the check, then makes changes with a biro, puts the forged label on it. Then Jack took out the flawed check, went to the bank to be cashed, but the bank teller looked at his poor face. He was turned down straight away. When he got out of the bank, Jack happened to see the pilot surrounded by stewardesses, a pilot's profession at the time. It was a golden opportunity, so Jack decided to pose as a pilot. He first disguised himself as a journalist, got into the biggest airline in the area, then he pretended to interview the head of the company, got a lot of details about the pilots, then he assumed the identity of a pilot, made a custom-made pilot's uniform. Having failed last time, Jack went straight for the printed check this time. Then he soaked the model plane in water, so that the logo on the model could be easily removed. Then he put the logo on the printed check, put the check in the book and pressed it down like this, and then Jack took the check with him, went to the bank. This time he used his identity as a pilot, and with his perfect forgery skills, he managed to exchange it for a large sum of cash. So next Jack bought a large number of model aeroplanes and started forging checks in bulk, and with the checks in hand, to all the major banks, to prevent the banks from finding out later that the checks were fake. Jack used his good looks, and with a few words he got the bank teller to think about reproduction. Then Jack got it out of the teller that the bank would add a code to the bottom of the check, a code at the bottom of the check to identify it as genuine. This code is generated by a special coding machine, so Jack bids on a coding machine from a bank that's gone out of business, from a failing bank. With this machine, Jack's forged checks that were no longer distinguishable from the real thing. So over the next few short months, Jack managed to obtain millions of dollars through forged checks. But as the number of bad checks in the bank grew, soon caught the attention of the FBI. So Smith followed a lead and soon found the hotel where Jack was staying. But when Smith burst into Jack's room, Jack came out of the bathroom with a calm face. "You're here to arrest Jack, aren't you? Sorry you're late. My partner had just escorted him out." At this point Smith was confused by Jack. He's a top scam artist. Jack, through his mastery of technique, forged a large number of checks, defrauded banks of millions of dollars in just a few months. But when the FBI followed the trail into Jack's room, Jack came out of the bathroom with a calm face. "You're here to arrest Jack, aren't you? Sorry you're late then. My partner has just escorted him out. We're from the CIA. Bye now." Smith was confused. "CIA? I need to see your ID." So Jack took out his wallet and handed it to Smith. But just as Smith was about to open his wallet, Jack tells Smith to look out the window. Look, my partner is escorting him to the car." Smith saw that this was really happening, so he believed Jack was CIA. That's when Jack grabbed the coding machine and said he was going to take it away for evidence, and told Smith to stay and secure the scene. When Jack left, Smith sat down and opened Jack's wallet. Who knew that the wallet contained? It was full of small forged logos. It was then that Smith realized, "I've been tricked again," so he rushed to the window. By this time Jack was clutching the coding machine, and he was running away. This made Smith furious, so he rushed through the clues, found Jack's mother. But Jack's mother and father divorced a year ago, and she didn't know where Jack was now. When Smith saw Jack's picture, Smith was flabbergasted. So this highly intelligent forgery expert was only 17 years old. Then Jack's mother asked Smith what was going on. Smith said directly, "Your son forged a check." The mother took out her wallet and tried to pay for it, but Smith said, "Give it up. Your son has already forged $2.3 million. And then Smith started searching for Jack's whereabouts while Jack arrived at a hospital. Next he planned to pose as a doctor. Jack used his forgery skills. He soon forged a certificate from Harvard Medical School. The director took one look at it. He hired Jack as head of the hospital. Jack then began to watch numerous medical videos, and then he imitated what they were doing. He just gave the doctors their orders. One day Jack was discussing his life with Nurse Mary. Suddenly the hospital receives a patient in emergency. Because of the severity of the patient's injuries, Jack had to make the decision. When Jack saw the patient bleeding, he threw up. It turned out that Jack was seized with blood. Then this will definitely expose. So Jack decided to change his profession again. To please his father-in-law, the top con man has portrayed himself as a multi-talented and successful man. He says that before he went to medical school, he had already obtained his bar exam. But his father-in-law, who was a lawyer, he spotted Jack right away, then questioned Jack with a serious look on his face. "What do you want to do?" That's when Jack started to use his acting skills. "I'm nothing. I'm just a poor man who loves your daughter." Who knew that his father-in-law was a romantic? Hearing Jack say that, it reminded him that when he got married, he was a poor man too. So with the help of his father-in-law, Jack succeeded in obtaining his law license. Jack looks at the happy life he is about to live. Then he began to worry that the FBI Smith would come for him. So he called Smith and begged him to leave him alone. When Smith heard that, "You've defrauded the bank of over $4 million. There's no way I'm going to let you go." The next day, on Jack's wedding day, Smith used the wedding party information. Suddenly he came to the door with his men. Jack didn't like what he saw. He grabbed his suitcase full of money and was ready to leave. Before leaving, He confessed his identity to Mary. He and Mary agreed to meet at the airport the next day. The next day Mary arrives at the airport as promised. Jack was about to go up and say hello. He finds that Mary is surrounded by the FBI. At this point Jack realizes that Mary might be under the control of the FBI, so he quickly drove away and then went to an aviation school, saying they were looking for stewardesses. After selecting 8 stewardesses, Jack was dressed in a pilot's uniform, walking among the stewardesses. At this point, the FBI at the airport. They were all looking at the beautiful stewardesses. They didn't even notice Jack in the middle, and so Jack managed to get on the plane. At the same time, Jack hired a man to pretend to be himself outside the airport. By the time Smith realized he'd been tricked, Jack's plane had disappeared. Jack then began to forge checks all over the world, and now the checks he forged, even the experts can't tell if they're genuine. But Smith was able to find a clue. Smith followed the trail and soon found Jack. Jack saw Smith with the checks in his arms and tried to escape. Smith advised Jack that the FBI are all over the place. If you run out of here, they will shoot you immediately. So Jack put on his own handcuffs and walked out with Smith. Jack was sentenced to 12 years in prison. He was sent to prison. A month later, Smith found Jack, showed him a forged check. Jack took a look at it and pointed out the many holes in the check. This immediately shocked Smith, so Smith reported it to his boss. After seeing what Jack could do, Jack was asked to work for the FBI Economic Crimes Division. So Jack helped the FBI solve a number of economic fraud cases. He also helped the bank design a patent for check security, and the bank paid him millions in royalties. Since then Jack and Smith became best buddies.